Hey, that's something else. We have our first Raptors blockbuster in some time. I don't think that the Jakob Poeltl trade really counted. Myself, Samson Folk, Esfandiar Berhani, and Travon Heath are here to talk about and maybe perhaps sit in the fallout of the OG Anunoby trade, which is what it will be called, with the New York Knicks. Let's do the structure first, just so everybody knows. OG Anunoby out the door, Precious Achiuwa out the door, Malachi Flynn out the door, coming in RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a second-round pick. Am I missing any structure based on you guys poking around on Twitter?
No, that should be it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's Trey, smile watch. Where are you? First things first.
I'm gonna say it's like a slight grin, just because they did something. Like it's a trade that like makes sense on paper. OG Anunoby's like an expiring contract. It's unsure if they were going to be able to re-sign him. And RJ is someone that they've been around. He's been in their practice facility multiple times. So they must have a belief that his shot is going to come around. Emmanuel Quickley fits a humongous need. So I get it. I'm just more shocked than anything.
I guess it's kind of funny too because you're on smile watch, but so is Malachi, right? Like Darko was like, you're kind of ugly when you don't smile. Maybe he's got that. He's away from the Raptors. Finally has an opportunity to, when Mitchell Robinson comes back, Isaiah Hartenstein. Maybe there's an avenue for Malachi. But I'd rather talk about OG first and foremost. I'll set the scene. This guy, despite not playing during the championship run, is a champion with the Raptors. Is their best defensive wing of all time, has a case for the best defensive player in Raptors history, outside of maybe a couple months of Kawhi Leonard. He has been an immense part of the organization forever, but this is the final manifestation of all the stuff that, all the things that got Jake Fisher threats from Raptors fans. Was like, OG would never want to leave. OG was looking at the environment that he was in, looking at what he wants to kind of try and turn himself into as a player, and there was friction between he and the front office. Last year, I heard that the Knicks offered 3 first-round picks in the future, and for a team that would have been good, late first-round picks, and at that point in time, Evan Fournier. I think this package is significantly better. Also, Precious is in there, Malachi is in there, but I think as far as value, you lose an icon to some. He's a big deal. OG rocks. But the return, especially for an expiring, I think this indicates the very likely idea that OG was not re-signing with the Raptors. How do you feel about it, S?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked for the most part just because I didn't think they would make a December trade. I just felt like they were going to push it all the way to February and kind of wait until to see what's out there. But maybe because of New York's own kind of dire situation, I wouldn't call it a dire situation, but just because, they lose Mitchell Robinson, they need an extra big. They also are dealing with the Quickley issue, which is becoming a growing issue for them, of them just not having enough minutes to kind of allocate for him.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a level of desperation from them to also get this deal done. So then you have, and also there's like the RJ Barrett equation of it. It's like, some Knicks fans are very split on what RJ can be, and I'm sure we'll get into that in this podcast. But yeah, I think I'm just shocked that it got done on December 30th, a day where it was supposed to be mostly Raptors versus Pistons, not Raptors versus Knicks trade, But yeah.
This saves the Mexico trip for Trey and I. Now we don't have to worry about any trades. We can do our racing on the beach and all that kind of stuff. Anything you guys want to do? You're not eulogizing OG Anunoby, but he's a huge part of the franchise. This is what a lot of people listen to. What do you want to say about OG, Trey, before he's on another team dressed in that Knicks blue and orange?
Yeah,
that's gonna be weird.
It's sad that it's to a team that is somewhat sort of a rival, I guess. But he was someone
sort of, bro. They're entrenched in a lawsuit, the heaviest lawsuit of all time over synergy.
Billionaires fighting over pennies.
Masai has a quote saying, "I don't care, I don't like the Knicks," and it still got done.
Yeah. I think he was someone that I considered as a core piece and someone that fit around Scotty significantly. and what they wanted to do. He's one of the unique players in the NBA where he does, even if you don't consider him at a star plane or he even can get there, he does everything that a role player would ask at an extremely high level. And losing that will be tough. It's probably some of his skill set, especially his defense, is something the Raptors are going to be searching for for a long period of time. But the
He
trade
was
makes
quiet
sense.
quitting a little bit though.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, when Jaylen Brown got downhill on him late in game, I was like, oh.
2 times in a row. I just finished watching the game, man.
I was like, brother, jump at the right hand, please. But yeah, I'm happy for him because he's gonna get a lot of opportunity also for creation on the Knicks as well, because all of those RJ and Quickley shots are likely going to become more usage for him on the ball.
I think it's what OG wants for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's my initial thing. The really interesting part of this trade, obviously, is that the Raptors probably have a considerable amount more of potential to get out of this. A lot of people look at Quickley as, kind of like an in vogue guy who could, really pop off given more possessions. And RJ is a guy who got a lot of usage early, stagnated. And while I think that stagnation is accurate and representative of what's happening in his game, it's not a lack of opportunity. He's still a guy who can definitely add to his game going forward. And OG, I think, for the most part, has added a lot of what he is going to add. Precious Achiuwa is also really a wild card. I wonder how he ends up looking in New York. Malachi, I think, will mostly look similar, but it's a really interesting trade. I'll just say from my the human side, OG was probably my favorite interview on the team. OG was awesome. Testimonials from media or people in Toronto, people who had met OG, I think OG was fantastic. I'm gonna miss him talking to him for that aspect of things. And same with Precious. Both the guys I got a lot of laughs out of are leaving. Malachi, there wasn't that much, that's your guy, S. But S, let's last things before we talk about, I guess, the New York side coming back.
Yeah, first of all, I bet Malachi, there's probably a little bit of maybe I will get more opportunity in New York.
Yep.
Maybe
100%,
there's opportunity
100%.
there for. So that's there. I also think same with Precious, just because they also have a dire situation at the big man spot right now with Mitchell Robinson out. There might be a world in which he is either their backup big, or maybe Tibbs loves him enough to put him in the starting lineup at some point. I don't know. I have no idea. But ultimately, there's an opportunity there for him to actually carve out a rotation, spot for himself. Whereas with the Raptors over the last week, it was seeming that, he was kind of getting cut more out of this rotation. So I don't know how the Raptors are going to work out this lineup. And maybe this is something we can talk about, just what the rotation and lineup is going to look with this new iteration of the team. But your point about them missing OG and his wing defense, it's going to echo for years. I feel like, just because it's so hard to find those types of players that can be these knockdown 3-point shooters for you, but also be really, really good defensive players. And it's sort of, you're betting that RJ will eventually be not 100% of that, but some percentage of that.
Yeah.
And that, I think to that point, I was just talking to Joe Wolfon, and he was like, oh, I don't think this is a big bet on RJ. And I actually think it is somewhat of a bet on RJ, because you need him to turn into a really, really good either starter for you or a rotation player for you, in order for this trade to kind of make sense. And obviously the Quickley aspect is huge. By the way, the one thing I'll say, because I've been watching a lot of Knicks games, Quickley will become a stud, an absolute stud. I think there's
He's
so
got
much
the
confidence
goods.
in that. He's got the goods, man. And he's also a really great point of attack defender too. So you're not seeing a massive drop off there at the guard spot. He's a really, really solid defender, two-way player, improving his
Can
shot.
I say something?
Decision. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Quickley and Barrett, for all the things that they aren't OG, and there's the corollary that everyone has been repeating, that the moment you trade OG, you begin the years-long, journey of searching for him again. At the very least, Quickley and Barrett are two guys who can have shown that they play high minutes in really good defenses. That's the biggest aspect of this. That matters a lot to me. And I guess we'll see how they can grow in their respective roles. But to me, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Yeah. Sorry. There's
No,
not
no, go nuts.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Thumbs up. I'm just still in shock, to be honest with you. I know like we're supposed to jump in here and have like all these like fresh, ready to go takes, but you're still trying to digest what just went down to kind of rationalize for yourself what works, what doesn't, what is the thing that pops out to you. The main thing for me is like Quickley. You got a guard. The Raptors were guard deprived. And ultimately, maybe this provides a little bit more balance for your team this season. And maybe the next step here is, within the deadline, which is today, you get a Pascal Siakam extension as well. And I think that's the second shoe to drop here, but who knows?
I think
sometimes only one shoe drops, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
A quick thing, just because we got a $7 donation from James Sorensen. He says, "Love the content, fellas. Can we get blessed with a Quickley film session soon? He reminds me a lot of Maxi. Can we extend him now?" I presume S will have a film session out before I do. I will in the new year, but I'm still in Saskatoon and I get home on the 1st. So yeah. Thank you for the donation, by the way. Yeah.
Oh,
but
my God.
as far as like the defense, as far as the fit, I think that the Raptors' new starting lineup, when everybody is in Toronto, you're starting Quickley, you're starting Barrett, you're starting Siakam, you're starting Scotty and Pirtle. As far as like floor balance, offensively, defensively, that works a lot better than what they currently have. I think that's also, you still get to keep Scotty in the defensive role that he's been thriving in. Pascal is guarding less guards now, more wings, and can switch on to some forwards depending on what Scotty is taking on that game. I think that's better. I think that RJ and Quickley, the question is maybe, does that combo provide more defense than Gary and OG or Dennis and OG? That's the question that we start asking. And you get to keep, I guess it would be nuts if Dennis is still starting. If Dennis is still starting, I'm like gobsmacked. But I hope that's the starting lineup. I think that it 100% shuffles the lineup in a way that makes way more sense. And Quickley is the biggest thing to me in this trade. I know like RJ's the 3rd overall pick. He's like going for 19 a game. He's only 23. He's supposed to have a ton of upside, and I think he does. However, I think he's got some upside still. I think it's Quickley is the guy who helps determine this. I think Quickley is the guy who develops a significant amount of synergy with Scotty and Pirtle as well. And I think that's where a lot of this upside comes from. And I didn't think OG had the value to get those guys like this. I have qualms about not seeing Scotty and OG into the future. That was something I thought was going to happen. But I don't have qualms about seeing certainly Quickley. And RJ, I know I watched a bunch of him with Team Canada. I know a lot of Raptors fans did, more than they watched him with the Knicks. There's going to be some frustrations there, but he's also capable of lots of things on the floor. So we'll see him kind of work and improve slightly or a lot. I don't think he's done growing just yet.
Trey, I'd love to kind of get your thought on RJ, because like I feel like you got a lot of opinions on RJ, and also like there are certain areas where he'll do really well on this team, right? Like the transition stuff, he's going to dominate with this team. Like there's different areas where he can, but I know you're an opinionated RJ man. So
RJ's like shot has been fairly inconsistent throughout his career. Like you said, the transition stuff makes a lot of sense, and I think he has more creation juice than OG. So the potential of someone that can play off of Scotty, get downhill in a straight line in a more coordinated fashion, and has a bit of passing feel as well when he's putting the ball on the floor, makes sense. Even like with Quickley, if your goal is to give Scotty the ball, allow him to be this post hub, you have two guys who have the feel to work with him and operate similar, because they have a player, I wouldn't say Julius Randle's the exact same player, but who operates within the exact same spaces. So I think it makes sense in terms of fit. And even like the Pistons second round pick is like pretty underrated. It's basically a late first.
Yeah.
So it gives you another opportunity to recoup off of past mistakes and ideally get a younger talent on the team also.
When did like an early second, is that Cope? Like an early second is a late first? You know, because I in my mind I'm like it's an early second. Like it doesn't
31st pick.
change.
What's the difference between 29 and 31?
Malachi Flynn and
I was
Desmond
about to say.
Bain. Malachi Flynn and Desmond Bain, buddy. What's the difference?
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man.
funny. But yeah, I just want to take that. So are you guys comfortable giving out grades in like really early? Does anybody
Sure.
feel that way?
Why not?
Sure.
I'll say I feel more positive about this one immediately than I did about the Acapurtle trade.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, because I'm not low on RJ, I think that I'm not like, oh no, he wasn't what I wanted him to be, because I've been like, RJ is like good player, exists in the framework for a few years. And I really like Quickley. It seems like everybody likes Quickley. Everyone thinks Quickley has more to give. He's kind of a unique player in that sense, that his potential, you know, it just seems like fans are higher on him than maybe the league at large, which is always an interesting thing. I'll go like B+ with like could go A- depending on RJ. And then I guess if Quickley is like the next Kentucky guard to go bananas, to go absolutely crazy, then this deal could go a million different ways. But also Precious on the other side, he could be the next great player in the NBA. Just as a heads up, guys. I'll give that as my rating. Where are you at, S?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with a B. When the tweet initially went down and it said draft compensation, I'm like, oh, if they got a first, this is a great deal. Or if they got like a first and a second.
Well, they basically got a late first.
Oh my god. But when it came down that it was a second, and now to be fair, it's Detroit's second, I was just like, oh, okay, like that. The deal makes a lot more sense to me. At first, it was like, oh, Raptors got so much for OG here. But now the deal is sort of level, I feel, in terms of what they gave up versus what they give. I think it's like you're betting that RJ is going to be a good rotation piece / starter for you for the next couple of years. You're betting that Quickley is going to become the budding star. I know Blake, shout out Blake Murphy. He had that piece on Sportsnet saying like, which are these guys who are going to take that next leap? Quickley was one of them, which I agree with. So for that part, I would probably say it's a B. It sucks to give up OG. It really does. But maybe, you know, there was this line of thinking amongst Raptors fans where it was like, well, you're not going to get a lot for Pascal right now because of the expiring contract, because of his age. OG is a much more in-demand player, and you could potentially get something more for him in order to change the direction of this team. And I think this trade does that. So B to B+ for me. If Quickley becomes a star, it's an A+. So yeah, Trey.
I'm going to say A. Considering the circumstances where OG's expiring contract, you're unsure if he's going to re-sign. You could have you could have put yourself in a situation where you're at the deadline scrambling to try to get any type of return. So you have Emmanuel Quickley, a guy who seems that he can scale up. Every time he's been given opportunity, he's done fairly well with it. RJ, who can kind of do some of the same things OG was asked to do. And it keeps a young core around Scotty while still remaining somewhat competitive. So I think they, considering the circumstances, they executed fairly well, and they got more than I thought they were going to.
Yep. I think like that's kind of the, you know, I see people in chat saying like, you know, Toronto fleeced, New York fleeced, one team lost, the other team lost. I think that this trade immediately is a win for the Knicks and a win for the Raptors, depending on how the proven commodities come back. Like that's kind of where it is, right? Quickley. And like the big thing, right, is that the Raptors, this team had the least amount of pull-up threes, the least amount of like made pull-ups. That was like something that defined this team. They had a significantly lack of versatility in how they scored above the break in an NBA offense. Quickley immediately supercharges that when he steps into more usage, and given his track record as a guy who can score off the bounce like that. I think that he adds a dynamism to the backcourt that they haven't had for a while. And I know like Fred VanVleet is a good guard, but he's more polished as far as like running an offense, getting the ball to a big than Quickley is or has been in his career. He's also Quickley's way younger, but Quickley's way more dynamic. The Raptors have a chance to put two guys together in Quickley and Scotty and let Scotty be the sun that Quickley kind of orbits around, where they can be like, it's symbiotic. They find a really good relationship there. And RJ at only 23 has room to grow more comfortably into something. And also there's kind of that like next contract or like second team thing where RJ isn't the third overall pick anymore. RJ is just a guy on a contract.
Yep.
Playing for his hometown team, basically, right? And he's asked to do, a moderate amount of stuff. He can thrive within that framework, I think. And as you mentioned, however many minutes ago, like there's an obvious path for RJ who gets out and runs the floor and like is a super strong finisher when going left and can dictate that more easily in transition. You play next to Scotty Barnes, you're going to be able to run out. You're going to be able to grab some easy points. And the Raptors are definitely going to rely on him when it comes to wing and guard defense. And he's probably going to give you more than a few guys have been recently. Not more than OG. But good.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about this? We're talking about how this might be a big bet for Toronto, right? Between RJ, between Quickley, even the second round pick, like they're betting on some of these young guys to flourish. It's sort of a bet for New York too, because it's a huge like you get OG, who's a wing and expiring, obviously fits your team incredibly, but also you're betting on him being that guy. Maybe they do give him those extra on-ball reps that he wants. I think there's a little bit more room in the Knicks offense to do that. Maybe that happens. Maybe he flourishes. Maybe he becomes that all-star that people in Toronto expected for many years. The same thing applies to Precious, which is like, hey, you have your opportunity here to crack a rotation, to get minutes, to become a consistent player. And he also has that extension coming up this summer too. So like this is a big bet for the Knicks too, I think, we're probably a little bit on shaky ground this year in terms of like the injuries and, middle of the pack Eastern Conference team and all that. It gives the Raptors a way to go younger. It gives the Knicks a way to double down on this current roster and see if they can, squeeze a little bit more juice out of whatever they have now, right?
Yeah, from a Knicks perspective, I got to assume that this is like the first trade in something else that they're trying to build up, because you're losing a good amount of depth and minutes on your team.
Yeah.
And Quentin Grimes has been so this year. So I would assume like the next, even if it's next summer, is getting that next on-ball creator that can help with spacing as well, like a Donovan Mitchell, for example. And although they gave up a lot, they still have enough assets to pull something like that off.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really big thing, is that like putting these in context with future decisions is what makes it, because you look at the Knicks, you're like, why do you trade like team control and upside for OG? As good as OG is, like they got the best player in the trade objectively, but he's also probably not a player that like, really radically changes their high potential outcomes and that kind of stuff. However, you get OG, and if you think, CAA, you think you can keep him in New York, then you're looking at like, we have Brunson, OG, Randall, and if we get that last guy, we're there. Like, I'm sure they think that. And so this OG, I think you can clearly see like this is an attempt at this is a first step, and they'll be attempting that second step. And that makes like a ton of sense to me. Those guys asks, Gary still starts or IQ. Just I'll repeat my starting lineup, and you guys let me know if you think it's the same for you guys. But Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. I guess are we all agreed on that?
Yeah. By the way, that starting lineup is a big bet that this Scotty shooting leap is real. Like whatever you're seeing here 100%. Is like he can space the floor for you.
Also, I do wonder, because the dialogue has been for a long time, is like, if, someone takes possessions away from Scotty, it's like, God damn it, what are you doing? What about point guard Scotty? And they started leaning into it for like a few games. He's been averaging what 25, 11 and 6 for, a handful of games this month. And now it's Quickley and Schroeder are going to provide, like, I think a lot of possessions, a lot of usage at the guard position. And maybe there's like a little bit less for Scotty there. And so Scotty slots into more so of that like wing role.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thoughts on that, fellas?
Like, I think there's because Quickley is, and Trey, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, by the way.
Yeah.
I think Quickley is a good off-ball player too. So like there's a world in which they are more, you said symbiotic. symbiotic, whatever. There's a world in which this works a lot better because he's so comfortable as an off-ball player. Brunson and Quickley run these screening actions together that work really well. I could see Scotty and Quickley doing that, where Quickley is the screener popping out, these ghost screens that they run with OG, they could run with Quickley as well. I don't know. I think for the most part, I'm okay with where Scotty is at and like what his usage is going to be, as assuming there's another guard. I sort of always assumed that there was another guard that was going to eventually be on this team, so you have to be able to play with him. But yeah.
Did you guys see Emmanuel Quickley's tweet?
What did he say? What did he say?
Oh my goodness!
I guess he didn't know.
By the way, he's not a rental. I saw someone just on the comments saying Quickley's going to be a rental. This is you saying you are going to pay Emmanuel Quickley whatever he wants in the summer. That's I hate to break it to you, man, but yeah, that's
he's RFA. They can just match.
Yeah,
so, Whereas OG, Pascal, and Gary, none of those guys are RFA.
Yeah, I think the Knicks will still have competition to re-sign him. Like he's gonna get paid a lot, so you're betting on him leveling up with the shot creation that he's going to be given, and also the defense maintaining at a certain level.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about the 2-man game for Quickley and Scotty above all else. What I said about RJ being able to find like a new spot for himself where he's expected to do moderate things and he doesn't necessarily have the expectations of, 3rd overall pick, the franchise is leaning on you, that kind of stuff. I think that's important. Do we have any qualms about Precious? We have a very good friend of ours who is like, he's on a watch right now. We're like, brother, I hope you're okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
How we feeling? Precious Achua, no longer a Raptor. What is Masai said? I have you for the next 66 years or something when he traded for him, right?
Oh, he is the nothing left from the Kyle Lowry trade, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a good way to spin it. We turned Precious into, or it's fine.
Yeah, Precious into Quickley. Yeah.
I'm considering like him being in the trade and not playing recently. Like, is a bet that Scotty at the 5 with the bench is like a viable option moving forward, or they're making another deal for a better backup big.
Yeah.
But like from the Knicks perspective, it's another guy who could put the ball on the floor. If you believe that he can play more as a wing, which I think plays more into his strengths, because ideally next season Mitchell Robinson will be back. If you keep him on the team, he'll need to occupy more wing type usage. I really like what he's done putting the ball on the floor and driving, and he's shown moments where he's been able to be a decent catch and shoot shooter, and the point of attack defense can stifle literally anyone in the NBA. So I could see it being a big swing for the Knicks also.
When Achua expressed his relief that the transaction was finally complete and he was ready to do damage with Toronto, Ujiri responded by saying, "You're mine now." Well, no longer. That's really, this is such a big trade, man. I was not expecting this. I was just hanging out. I thought like the same thing that you said, S. I thought that this thing was waiting until, I don't know, like February. I thought we were going to get some stuff there. It is really interesting, as you mentioned, that it happened on the 30th. As everybody knows, this is the big day for Pascal Siakam, extension, etc. And Pascal, also a guy who's expressed interest in staying. Yeah. And also, as I've said, you've said, Trey has said, a lot of people have been, reading the tea leaves on it as well, is that the OG stuff and the Pascal stuff, some of it played into each other. Like there's room for a certain amount of wing possessions, initiation possessions in the lineup. Both of them are up for contracts, and their contracts play off of each other. And if Pascal was gone, maybe it makes it easier to say like, OG, we're giving you a bag and we're giving you possessions. With OG leaving, Pascal, who already wants to be in Toronto, maybe it's easier to connect on something. I guess we'll see. I know that the fan base, has kind of been like topsy-turvy on Siakam so far this season, but and I know a lot of people wanted the OG and Scotty future, but Pascal's the better player right now. OG has to keep improving to get better than Pascal. Pascal has to, fall down a little bit to be worse than OG. And I guess we'll see what happens with both those guys going into the future. And they get RJ and Quickley out of it. and
Yeah.
basically a late first. It's a decent trade.
Do we think there's another trade coming? Because I think there's some comments here saying like, "Oh, are they going to move this guy or this guy?" I would be pretty shocked, to be honest with you.
I
think,
don't see it at all.
yeah,
I was a bit shocked that they moved that many roster spots on the team.
but hey, more Grady minutes
Yeah,
apparently.
that's fair. Maybe it's a sign that
We'll
they're going younger and making a decision. But like, if I were to choose now that you've traded so much talent, and you're unsure of how Quickley is going to scale, like you have to re-sign Pascal and then see personally.
I
can't.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it can't be a coincidence they made this trade today. I mean, especially given the fact that you're on a back-to-back. I mean, I'm not saying it's a big deal that you're on a back-to-back against the Pistons and the losing thing and all that stuff. Like that's kind of noise that is bigger on Twitter than it is in the actual like front office sphere of things for them. But ultimately, it's too much of a coincidence that this final day where it was Siakam potentially being extension eligible, you make a big trade, a blockbuster trade, if you will, to kind of trade the other guy in the equation. I just feel like it's too much of a coincidence. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? I'll be stupid in 12 hours if they don't do anything. But yeah.
Well, it's also, as the intermediary between fans and players and like the front office, like a lot of people say things to me that they want to say to the front office for like, I got a lot over the past few years when the Raptors, it seemed like they might do something. And I commented and I was like, they didn't do anything. A lot of people respond and say, Masai's not done cooking. So, and he didn't end up doing anything those years, but he started cooking, he and Bobby. So I can't pretend to know what they're going to do because I didn't know this was coming either. So I'm not going to sit up here and be like, nope, I'm hearing, from X and Y that, I mean, they could keep going. It seems to me like, as you said, if you're reading the tea leaves, that doing it on the 30th seems to mean something, but I guess we'll see. I have to hop on with Blake Murphy. If anybody wants to listen to this kind of stuff on the radio with myself and Blake, feel free. Stay tuned for, I think in the next week, the next Pull Up Trey podcast. Go to the SDPN YouTube channel to get S's video breakdown on this trade, certainly, for all your content. And Mike De La Rosa, who was embroiled in a Twitter spat with Raptors Twitter once for saying that Darius Garland was better than Fred VanVleet, just messaged me and said, now you got your version of Garland. Here we go, boys. Quickley is ready to light the thing on fire.
There we go.
Make sure for anybody who's listening, like the video before you get out of here. Helps promote it to other people. For myself, Esfandiar Berhani, Trevon Heath, we affectionately call Trey. We've been talking shop. Hope you enjoyed. And thanks for hopping in. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.